until you had the likes of Lungi Bird come on stream to create something. And he created a television. And when he created the television, a lot of people benefited from it. Their lives became a lot better because of the television. And today, look at the ecosystem the television has opened up. There are people that forged their careers around the creation of Longy Bird's television. Just excuse me for a moment. And these people, they've been able to make something appreciable in their lives. You either could be a source where you create something that other people can latch onto and also create opportunities for them. Or you can also recreate in the frame of what other people have created. So take for instance, social networking. The capacity of me being able to talk to millions of people today by the comfort of my room, if not based on the iteration of the likes of what people like Mark Zuckerberg started working on in the early 2000s and the likes of Jack Dorsey started working on, I'll not be here. Because of this, I've been able to create a platform where I'm here, I'm on the radio at the same time. People are seeing me on platforms that are encouraging other people. And some other people too are listening to this on Twitter. So we have multiple platforms at the same time because of the creation of people. And the good thing about creation is there's still so many things that you will need to create. There are still so many things that are left in the world to be created. There are still so many medicine that are left to create. Remember Alexander Fleming and penicillin. Prior to him creating penicillin and investing in penicillin, to be able to get an antibacterial was a challenge. But penicillin came and changed the order of the day. It was somebody's creation. The question is, how can we effectively make most of our listeners a creator? Some will say, okay, content creator, but I'm talking beyond content creation now. That's also good because you're impacting the market. I am also creating the content here. But I'm saying a sustainable legacy creator. What is it? What are the important ingredients that will be the most important thing in his head was the thought. So today I'd like to work on your thought process. What do you think about? Do you think about unity or do you think about division? If you constantly think about division, then life will not be good because you can't keep on dividing the world and you think it's a sustainable agenda. It's against the ethos of development. Also, it's against the ethos of the impact and the dream God put you on earth to have. So when you have a negative mindset and you also want to constantly create agents of destruction, you should be careful. Nobody wants to be known for destruction. You should be careful. Because a lot of people say things they don't mean because they want to be famous and popular. But you forget, you're already leaving a trail behind of what people remember you for with your activities, even on social media. So let your yes be yes. It should be on record that you stand for something that is cogent and that is true and that is sustainable. Don't be somebody that will stand for something that will cause a lot of chaos and destruction. So the question is, what are the thoughts in your head? If your thoughts are towards creating evil, please discard it. It's going to ruin you because there is no how. Evil will come also to ruin the creator of evil. Life is about energy and what you give out. When you give dangerous evil energy, when you give divisiveness and evil and wanton destruction of lives and property, it will come back and it will hunt and it will destroy you. And the truth has to be said. A lot of people have faced their destruction by the words they say that's very powerful and they don't know. You come here, you wish all sorts of people evil, you do all sorts of evil, you abuse people. You think every word uttered will not be accounted for. You think every word uttered will not be accounted for. You lie. Because everything you uttered will be accounted for. You're going to have to answer questions for every word you ever uttered. The earlier you realize that, the better it is for you. If you don't, then you're going nowhere. Be careful. Even in what you say in so-called your private, how you propel evil and division, be careful. The most important thing, like I said before, as regards changing the world and creating, is your mindset. Question is, what's your mindset? Where are you in your head? You cannot think evil and create something good. Even people that have created inventions that have been used for evil want to dissociate their name from it. I keep telling the story of a man called Alfred Nobel. Prior to this time, Alfred Nobel had made a lot of money with super tankers. And in his life as an inventor, he had invented something called dynamite, which was used to burst rocks and things like that, but also is a very important ingredient and component in the destruction of the world, because most of the bombs, there's a dynamite component there. And there was a time that his brother Ludwig had died. And there was a newspaper article that ran that said the merchant of death is dead. They thought it was Alfred that died, but not knowing it was Ludwig. And Alfred saw that article and said, oh, so if I had died, this was how they were going to remember me, as the merchant of death. Then Alfred looked and said, what can I do to change my situation and change my life? Then he made investments with most of the money he had, and he put an endowment that let me recreate my life for good. And he recreated his life for good by setting up something called the Nobel Prize. And today, they gave that Nobel Prize for peace. And Alfred is remembered as the man that supports great and creative ideas around the world. But originally, if that incident had not happened, Alfred will never have gotten the chance to be able to recreate his personality. Even after the likes of Pulitzer did a lot of what was called yellow journalism, and they disrupted the world, and they caused division and distraction in the world. Pulitzer was very famous with a lot of manipulation and destruction and division. Pulitzer, it was said that most of the money he had acquired in the end had to be careful about what his legacy will be. Then he put those monies into giving prize for journalists that are doing good work. After all the shenanigans Pulitzer did over the years, and that's why today we have a Pulitzer Prize. So even men that have done evil, still trying to be on the path of good. That speaks volumes about your capacity to create. And nobody wants to be a creator of anything evil. Everybody wants to create something good that is lasting and that'll stand the test of time. So at first, you need to get your mindset right. I'm not saying don't have your convictions, but it's not destruction of other people. That should be your conviction. Your conviction should be trying to make the world a better place because you lived. State your point, state it, but do not destroy the world. Because everything you say or do will be remembered, one way or the other. Be careful. And where you might have gone astray in your life, make amends. Make amends. People get over and get better. At some point, when the likes of Sakharov discovered that the weapons they were of mass destruction they were making with the Soviets, and being a scientist, will destroy the world. The likes of Sakharov became dissidents, and he decided to be outstanding, and he turned the path over. Be a man of peace, a man that changed the world for the better. Even if when people laugh at you and say, oh, you didn't go the path of war. No, there's nothing that justify a war. That's why we should be careful in the Middle East for escalations. There's nothing that justify the path of war. A man I really wished I met before he passed, but I never got a chance to be able to listen to him, was the proponent of perestroika himself and glasnost. Gorbachev, Mikhail Gorbachev. A lot of people in his home Russia call him stupid, puppet of the West. But the truth is, at the height of those nuclear crises in the late 80s and early 90s, that made the likes of Francis Fukuyama write books about the end of civilization and all of that. This was the only sane head that calmed things down. And it will be that this man, Gorbachev, brought some peace to the world. So when you look at it, be careful. Don't divide the beautiful earth. Bring some peace and sanity. Your mind matters. Where is your mind? That's why I constantly talk about the mind here. Then secondly, anything you're going to create is in tandem with the gifting God has given you. So check. There's a reason why God has given you the gift of speaking. For me, most of the things I've created, and I'm happy to be part of, including this medium, Voice of the People, 90.3 FM, and other mediums I've created, is along the line and the gifting God has given me, the gift of speaking, the gift of impacting, the empowerment series I've created, the empowering series that I'm also part of, that somebody that went through the empowerment series also was part of. All of this give back I have created. And many things as regards healthcare outreach. And please, you can still be part of the healthcare outreach. Go check my page on Twitter. And you can call the DM Pharmacy for that. We're giving in Abakaleke, Songwater, and other parts, or some other parts of Lagos, Ekiti and the likes. People over 50, just walk into any DM pharmacy that we're partnering with, check your blood pressure, say it's from Rufai, just fill up a form. We also give you discounts on the drugs, just to help a lot of people. And we're having big health outreach coming out before the end of the year. And also we're having the big competition and the likes. So all the things I've done, the truth is, it's centered around the gifting God has given me. God has given me the power of speaking. Secondly, He's given me the power of bringing people together across all fronts. And that's why I bring people together for projects that are laudable. Just like I brought a lot of people together and we built the library in the village, Oseni Center Library in the village. And I'm also partnering with ZODML Library to be able to now tune it up and restock, partnering with, Conga, Xenox, a lot of companies to do a lot for people. So it's giving me the capacity to be able to bring people together. So I keep creating things in that space of bringing people together. So the question you should first ask yourself in the bid to be able to create, what are the giftings God has given you? What are the giftings God has given you? There are lots. Some, the power of speaking, the power of organization, the power of project planning, the power of a lot. And I keep partnering, the power of partnerships. Just like we had partnership with 1 Million Teacher, where we trained teachers at the start of the year. I'm also trying to partner with another very decent foundation, Sapphire, where they do a lot of work with children, teach them Christian ethos and things like that. Partnering. It's a really very important capacity building. Because I also understand that a lot of these things in creation, you can't do it alone. Just like a component of a car, you can't totally build a component of a car in one country. There are a lot of suppliers coming in and out. So when you see a car that they say is made in Nigeria, the engine component might be from Japan, France, China, wherever, but everything comes together in one country. That's why you have OEMs around the world. Even the software, because most cars have software now, your radio system in the car and everything are coming together of different fields. Take, for instance, this same Apple software. I mean, this same, what's it called? Google software. Google app software. It's on most cars today. You install a radio system that has Google software. It's part of the component. What about the software that comes with the car? So it's not just a mechanical engineer that builds a car any longer. It's a coming together of many components and many patents to make a car. And that's what creation is all about. How can you have various collaborations across board? You must be able to collaborate so much and you work with people from diverse cultures. That's also understanding appreciation of culture, because the most important skill you'll have in this century is the people's skill. Yes, I know there's a proliferation of AI, but what will also crack AI will be the people's skill, because machine learning is constantly learning, but also you as a human machine must also be able to learn the people's skill and learn different culture. I remember at some point I was running something called Loyal Bonus, which I was co-founder, and some parts of the team I remember were in America. So I get to learn about cultures of Vietnamese American. We had a great guy called Cody, Vietnamese American. Different cultures across board. And the exciting thing about this is, how can you bring all of these people together for the gain of doing good? That's the most important thing. For the gain of doing good and for the gain of creation. So how can we create? Bringing all of these people, bringing all of these mindsets together. Because one, you can't do it all alone. Like I tell people, I'm going a lot into health outreach this year. I'm already having I've had the first partnership, with my family doctor and the man that took care of my father for 12 years. I'm having a partnership with his hospital for that. I'm also extending. So you can only be part of the puzzle. But the question is, what's your mindset? What keeps you up in the nights? That's number one. Secondly, another thing is how to be able to effectively sell this dream and objectives. How to be able to effectively sell this dream and objectives. And every single day when I come up with this capacity of partnership I have through this wild network, thousands of people watching me now and listening to me, I try to see how I can coalesce effort for good. Somebody saw my outreach with DM Pharmacy and was saying, Rufai, can we do an outreach together on Delta Care? I saw that person, send me all the details, I'll push it out there. I'll give my platform, we'll coalesce together. It's how we can do these things. So how you can get people and you can move together emphatically to be able to create the lasting change you need. Most importantly, what's the targets of the creation? What are you creating for? Let building capacity be the first target of the creation, not money. Money is a byproduct of building that capacity. When you build capacity to an instance, money will come. I remember partnering with Dio Israel, and we had empowerment series in 2014, 2015. And we built capacity, and I was doing those things. And secondly, in London, then I partnered with a church, a Redeemed Church in London, in Plumstead, when we had the second empowerment series. For me, it's about the capacity to be able to build that capacity. And that's what matters a great deal. So it's not about anything. How can you build that capacity? So even if it's in business and creating a solution, what can you build as capacity? What capacity can you build? Okay, I will be playing an excerpt in the 10 o'clock hour of a conference I partnered with another friend of mine. I mean, she had seen me do a lot of the Empowerment Series conference, and she channeled these conferences around her. I'm going to play an excerpt, and we're talking about how to build Nigeria. And that's capacity building. So it's about how you can trickle in into partnerships and blogs. Also, you must be able to understand the capacity of networks and ecosystems. There's a book I'll say you should read. It's a book written by Professor Neil Ferguson. It's called The Square and the Tower. It talks a real deal about the capacity of partnerships and how the partnership was so strong that prior to the war, Second World War, most of the European royal family were tied together in one string of unity under the big family name called Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. And that speaks volumes about partnership, because anything you need is in the hands of another person. I mean, also soon from some of our health routes, I'll be partnering with Dr. Wale Ogulano. I'm also looking at the partnership of somebody hitting me up with a Proco doctor. So how we can pile these things together for the mindset of giving good and creating in society. So I've talked about the power of partnership. I've talked about the fact that you can't do it alone. I've talked about your mindset. Then another part is, what is the quality of the product? What's the product you're finally giving? And how can other people buy it, be it not for profit or profit product? How can people now buy into it? And the reason why Nigeria is failing is that we're not creating a lot. A lot of people in government. How can we create jobs? How can we create employment? How can we create opportunities for people? The reason why Nigeria is poor today is that it's not because of capacity. We have capacity. I mean, I was not surprised when Goldman Sachs brought out a report and said Nigeria could be the fifth largest economy in 2075. I'm like, we could even do better. Because one thing about Nigeria is population will continue to grow. And population growth is supposed to be a blessing, not a liability. But for only those that know it. It's only if you know it that then you'll see that population growth is supposed to be a blessing, not a liability. But here, increasingly, we keep saying our population growth is a liability because we are not harnessing. So take, for instance, large swaths of land. I keep saying, rather than allow crime and banditry fill it up, do you know the ecosystems we can build out of these areas? And how we can secure our land so that illegal mining doesn't happen, and we use most of those things, to build silicon factories and, battery factories and things like that. So these are the employment capacity. I would pause a bit there. I'll take a couple of calls. 0818-099-1991. You can call from any part of the world. 0818-099-1991. We'll take some calls. You see, the product now has to do with three major things. Number one, understanding the market. Two, best possible quality for the competitive pricing. Three, sustainable quality. Those are three things that we'll deal with as regards product. Hello, how are you? Bless you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning. God bless you.
Rufai.
Yeah, bless you.
How are you?
Yeah, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Dr. Ijeoma, calling from Abuja.
Great to have you, sir.
I called you last week.
Yeah, you are the person on the pharmacy thing that I partnered with, and I said to give your contact out. Yeah.
Yes, you give me your contact. You said I should send you messages on WhatsApp, but I understand the schedule of your job that you are always busy.
Yeah, but I said also you should give your contact out on air, which you did last week.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. You know, you said I should send that you want to partner with me. I'm partnering with you now. I'm in Makurdi, in Benue State.
Yeah.
So reach out to people because I don't want to miss your program today. That was why I couldn't even meet up with the money man.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. So what I mean, you said you have a pharmacy now that produces drugs, right?
Yes, a registered pharmacy. Why? The purpose of the pharmacy is because of my medical outreach. I'm a pathologist.
Okay.
Yes, if I'm not a pharmacist, but the secretary of the company is my classmate pharmacist, Orimolo Yeshion.
Okay.
The assistant director of State Hospital Akure.
Okay.
So we are classmates. So, and anytime I'm doing things like this, so that it can be of, but everybody cannot be on the field, on the medical mission.
Yeah, and not everybody, yeah.
Yes, because I love the kind of vision you have to reach out. If someone like you might not be on the field, but using your platform and again using your connection for those, a lot of people really want to partner with organizations like this, but they need truth and the genuine people who are ready to do the job.
Yes.
So this is just the challenge, because I don't go to church, I don't go to anybody to solicit. I use my money to the glory of God for this program.
Yes, and that's very commendable. And that's very commendable. So you know what you're going to also do for me. So I have given you a platform to get this one step started. Also, see, can you do like banners, advertising banners, where you're going to do your outreach and numbers people can reach, and I also spread them on wider platforms so that I can use, many platforms I have, VOP, Rufai, any platform, to key into what we can do. Like I said, my partnership will come in terms of publicity, which is priceless, which is constantly giving you the audience. And also, when I give you that audience, you must also report back, because this audience was not just given to me by God for accountability. So you must also now report back based on your reports and say, okay, these were the people we were able to reach with medical outreach and everything. So we have an accountability basis kind of thing. Most of the things too I do, I use most of my own resource. Yeah, sometimes I get help, but I don't wait for help, because for me, it's my own, offering to my God as my sacrifice. So most of the things I do with my, charities and things like that, and the impactful things I do. So let us see how it goes that way. You have that, number from last week. Send messages there, WhatsApp. We'll pick them up, we'll amplify them. And like we've done last week, a lot of people are listening to you, and you never know how much this will get.
Yes. Even the friend called me, Mr. Henry from the Sun newspaper, they were listening. But one thing is that why I tried to reach out to you today and again is that so that I can give you mutually the report, the update on the mission feed. Because I need to carry you along. Anything I'm doing like this, I want to show proof for you to see that this is what the challenges, the development so far as the field is concerned. Because the mission that was why I said, okay, let me just inform you.
So what's up on the mission field? How many people did you reach out to? What were the challenges you faced?
The challenges we always face on the mission field is a lack of sufficient drugs because of financial constraints. We couldn't get enough. And then the challenge is that means of transportation. Mr. Rufai, if you look at this community, I came out to a particular village that was last January this year. They have never seen handset before. When I came out with my phone to capture they were scared.
What community is that?
That is the village they call it Cultivating in Nasarawa State.
A Kokihi Soho village in Nasarawa State. They've never seen handsets before.
Yes. Even though if you see the bad road, we have challenge of mobility. People doesn't go to that place. Only even from Panda, Bianco to that place is about 2,000 naira. You won't even know that Nigerian people like that are living there. They don't have nothing. For the first time to see handset, see me slapping them with my camera phone, I have to persuade them because they don't have a church, nothing. They don't believe in any religion. They are idolatry and they are farmers.
Okay.
So if you see people, sir,
so things like that, where you go to communities like that, tag all the pictures, send it to me, tag me in the picture. I've given you a place, dump it there, I will amplify those things. So you also say, what kind of drugs do we need to be able to do that outreach?
We need majority of them have diabetic and peptic ulcer.
So we need a lot of diabetic and ulcer drugs.
Then river blindness, that is what we call onchocerciasis. Because of poor weather, it's a challenge of the weather, the atmospheric condition of the environment, lack of potable water. So because I even have it in mind that maybe I will discuss that with you some other time, how we can put a borehole in that community. And let me now expose one secret to you. Let the whole world listen to this. Whenever they need the vote of those people, they go to their place. There was a time during the election.
That's not secret now. We know all of that now. Election, they will go there.
They will not come to come and rescue them.
My brother. If I'm thinking that politicians will make the change I will not be doing this show this month. So I'm already forgotten that. It's how we can make the change. So you say they need river blindness medicine, Abi?
Yes.
What do they need again? Diabetes medicine and peptic ulcer. Oh yeah, give your number, please. This brother, I've not met him before, but I trust him because I've taught to trust. That's why I'm giving him the platform. So he needs drugs for river blindness, and that we used to do an outreach. I'm also supporting, giving him platform here. If you can join us, please help out. Please give out your number again on air so that we can amplify this message and all of that. And God sees all of us. And thank you so much for all you do, as regards that. Your number, please.
It's 090.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah.
83.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah.
27.
Great to have you. Great to have you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm happy that people at the Sun newspaper were listening, from that you get. And I'm happy they too will help you amplify, it's really lovely. God bless you.
And I would like to please appeal to you that because the challenge again is very important, because it has been a burden on me, because I'm living for this purpose, and that's why I'm into medical mission. I'm a missionary by calling, so I have to suspend what I'm doing to commit my focus on reaching out to the people that I don't go to urban area. I prefer rural area, though I live in Abuja, but going to those kind of places. If you see me on the field, you will give God all the glory. So the challenge is that whatever you can do is that we have some bad roads. So if they can support this vision, that perhaps that we can get, all these, this kind of rugged vehicles. So because we cannot mention a lot because it's expensive now. Because the challenge, this village I'm talking about, along Panda, if I do the video anytime around, I will capture the place and send it to you. Look at the bridge, you can't even pass there.
Okay.
The road destroyed. So we're having challenge. So if there is any means, Mr. Rufai, that they can give us support in terms of mobility, those who have the consciousness to help as the spirit leads. So that, because I always took those nurses from Gariki Hospital, they support me. It's charity for free. We don't collect money.
Okay, thank you so much. The most important thing, you've given out your number. You don't know who might come through. The thing about God is very wide. You don't know who you might use. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bless you. Yeah. So you had his number there. We keep doing a lot of outreach. There are many other people partnering with this for impact. Sorry, I had to tilt the Instagram live a bit because I needed to charge. And we're on multiple platforms at the same time. We're also on Twitter. And this message is going out to so many people at the same time. So we have a caller calling in from hello, how are you? Hello. We're struggling to connect with that. Once we can connect, we'll be able to take it up from there. This is not connecting. I don't know. It's problematic. You can still call us up. The number 2 is also on WhatsApp, 0818-099-1991. So 0818-099-1991. So we'll also get all of that up and running, and so okay, I'm just trying to contact those dear bits in the studio. Okay, yeah, good. So we'll still take some calls. 0818-099-1991. Also, I'm going to be playing an excerpt for you as regards the speech that Dr. Newton Jibono gave at Pelumi's event. Congratulations, Pelumi. You did a great job drive from Nigeria to London with a car. God bless you so much, and thank you for putting Nigeria on the map. 0818-099-1991. And I also have another a lot of other outreaches that we're partnering with, that we're giving impact and giving Philip to their projects. So you can do well, to join us on all that, right? So a lot of people are saying, okay, link me up with the man that wants to do the mission for mission support. I think I've since linked them up last week on all of that, and then we would. Okay. So I think I got some pictures out here. Okay, so he sent some pictures. Okay, so I'll get those pictures out, and we'll also share as regards the medical mission and what has been done in these communities and in these areas. So call us up on the phone line 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. Hello, how are you doing? The power of creation this morning. Hello, how are you? Bless you. Morning, how's it going? How are you? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Good. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Lagos.
Good to have you. Lagos is a very big place. So where in Lagos precisely are you calling? Talk to me, my sister.
I'm also a Kumabai.
Yeah. Oh, great. God bless you. Yeah. Go ahead, I can hear you. Hello? 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 What's happening to the phone lines today? Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening. It's still not connecting. A lot of people trying to call, but it's not connecting. But once I can get them in, I'll be able to take the calls. I'll be able to put it out there. Okay. I don't know what's happening to the phone lines today, but do well to still get across to us. Zero 818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. I think we're trying to reach back to the audience that called us up. Let's see if we can call them back, because it's quite, I don't know, we're having a lot of challenges on the phone lines today. Hello, how are you? Hello? Hello? Wow. Okay. We'll see if we can get people back. I don't know what's happening to the phone lines. It's not even those that are calling on WhatsApp, not connecting. We're having just challenges everywhere. And you can do well to call us up on the phone lines. We'll pick it up from there. All right. There's this UK number that tried calling us. We have tried calling her back, the person back. Okay. Again, let's hope this goes through. This is not just connecting. I don't know what's happening. This is not just connecting. This is not connecting. This is sad. This is not us. I mean, we have tried our best, and so that's not connecting. It happens sometimes on a live show like that. Sometimes the phone lines are very smooth. Sometimes it's problematic. It's challenging back and forth, but that will not stop us. So I'm posting some pictures now of the, what's it called, of the rural impact projects and the rural outreaches by the person that sent some of the pictures. So once we can get more of those pictures, if you can also tag them properly and let us know the community, we will be able to get. So he was Mangem Pharmaceuticals. I remember that was his contact, Mangem Pharmaceuticals. And his number once again is 0906 683 3627. Mangem Pharmaceuticals, and that was his number. So we got across to him as much as we can. And okay, let's see again from the option time if this is going to. Oh, bless God. Hello, finally.
Oh my God.
Finally, oh.
Bye.
Finally.
Oh my God. I
Bless.
don't know what Nigerians are doing. Rather than using our technology effort to create good impact, we always use how to damage. You find that there might be something going on, people trying to interrupt your land because they don't want people to get through. I don't know why we are so energetic to negativity. You said it from the beginning of the program. What do you think in your mind? How do you think about it? Anyway, before I go very far.
What's your name, please?
Oh, sorry about that. My name is Sinota.
Okay.
I'm calling from London.
Okay. Go ahead.
And
talk to me.
I'm glad the clock come back. That's why I'm able to catch up with your program. Since the clock has been forward, it's been either you're done before I can see it.
I can imagine.
I just watch after life. So me opening my phone this morning and seeing you was like a bomb shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll quickly go through it. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you so much.
for me to say long life and prosperity. Do you share the same month with me myself? I'm 26th of April.
Oh, April people. Bless you.
April children.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, like you said, what do we think in our mind?
Yeah.
Let me go back to where you stop at before the caller that called from saying he's showing you pictures of where he's been.
Yeah, medical outreach.
People trust people. I think since 2014, I've been part of UNICEF. They just met me on the road casually and said anything would do, and I joined. And ever since then, I've never pulled out my direct debit because I thought that's my own way of giving back to the system and community where I work.
Yeah.
In my community, the same way, I always every now and then donate to the charity. I work with NHS and I see how much impact charity has impacted the NHS in the UK.
Yeah.
Yes, the government put in. Yes, the funding comes from the government. But you see things like you're charging your phone in the hospital, you're making a cup of tea around the corner, you're getting water fountain. All of these things are done by the charity.
Yeah.
That's how much powerful charity is in the system.
Yeah.
Don't override. But you see, our people have made trust difficult. What this man said now is a very good initiative. Get him a good backpack, a very strong power bike, a great helmet, and he will go a mile. But he said it so swiftly, so nicely, so intense and catchy. But you find that things like this, you put your hand into it. People just sit down around the corner, get the fun, and just use it the way they want. So, which make trust very, very difficult to get.
Yeah.
We put one way or the other. I'm not bragging. It might be one-off. It might be every time. What we put in for people who comes to say, oh, we're raising GoFundMe and all of that, which makes trust very, very difficult. And like you said from the beginning, the people who are projecting bad in their life find a way of putting positivity. There was a video I made one day and I posted. I said, if you're a bad politician or you came in through the back door, not because you're bad, but because the system does not compel you to come through the good way, why not do the right thing? Even though you say the system is bad. Yes. If the system is not good, but I'm good, and I had no choice than to pass through the good system, the bad system, why don't I get there and just drop my own water in an ocean, even though it's going to make an impact or not? Because the cup is half full than empty.
Yeah. Makes a lot of
Do you
sense.
get me, Mr.
Yeah.
Rufai?
Yeah.
So I just don't know. I
Yeah.
thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for the way you're doing it. It's very difficult to put in things. Now they're telling us that $9,000 is down. My parents, my sister, because every month I must send in my mom's feeding money. And every year I must pay a rent because I said I'm not going to build a house in Nigeria that I cannot maintain because I'm not there. If you do something, you can maintain it because it's yours, you can see. But when you can't, I'll rather let her live in an apartment and I'll be paying for it as long as she's here. And make sure she has every medication necessary and every drug, which my elder sister is doing. But how can I do for my mom alone and I cannot help other people just like this way this man has explained? Because people has made it so difficult to trust them. You can imagine you see people advertising their goods online, which is from Nigeria. People will go there and copy this person's page and put it on their page and put another account number there and be collecting people's money for you to believe that you are purchasing that item from that person, only to find out.
So, which is very sad.
Only to find out you're not supporting Nigerian business. You're only putting your money into the hands of the greedy and the heartless ones. So I just don't know.
Thank you so much. You see, one thing I've come to realize in life is whether you do good or whether you do bad, you will have your comeuppance. You will meet your maker someday. And sometimes your reward will even start on earth. People don't understand spiritual implications. Some things happen to you and you're looking, oh, why did this happen to me? You check the work of your hands. Check the work of check the work of your hands. Is the work of your hands clean? Can God judge you based on the work of your hands? And that's why I said life is very deep. You think you can steal all the money in the world and get away. Did you really get away with anything in this life? You can't. So you need to watch yourself and make due recompense. I like my Muslim brothers. My father was a Muslim for many years. And they'll always say this thing. And I went to the mosque a couple of times. So they always say, what it means is constantly make atonements, for yourself. Because you really think that the evil, shitty things you did, you can go scot-free with it. But in life, it doesn't really happen that way. And these things will come back to bite you. So you must also have the capacity to be able to create. And what you're creating, the question is, are you creating something that is good, that is sustainable, that has good legacy, that transformed a lot of other people, or you're creating chaos, you're creating pain for other people, you're creating destruction and all of that. See, life is but for a fleeting moment. The earlier you realize that, the better it is for you. And I pray this week as you go, may God give you understanding. Because you see, the man that does good, he has understanding. The man that does evil also has understanding. It's just the difference in understanding that matters. The man that does evil thinks evil is the only way to break him forth. But the man that does good knows that good is the supreme way to break him forth. May God give you understanding. If you had understanding, you wouldn't do the things you do. You will not abuse people on social media. You will not go and indict people. You will not destroy people. You will not do all sorts of things against people's names. And it's just about the understanding you need. I pray this week it is blessed for you. I've processed some pictures. I've also put out the man's number that does the outreach, rural medical outreach. That's a big support. I got close to about 1 million followers on my Twitter. That's about the biggest, support and exposure I'd given him. That's my little way of partnering with him. And I posted one of the pictures of his outreach and I gave his number out there. So if you can go ahead, do well to support. And I pray God will bless you. He'll make his face shine over you. He'll give you peace on every side. And the love of God that passes the understanding of man is definitely upon your life. It is well with you. You are lifted and you are blessed. God bless you, my brothers and sisters. God bless you all.
satisfaction guaranteed. VOP, Voice of the People. VOP, Voice of the People.
For the perfect getaway?
Look no further than the luxurious accommodations at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, Lagos, number 42, Muritala Muhammad International Airport Road, Lagos.
Relax and unwind in a beautifully appointed rooms featuring all the amenities you need for a comfortable stay.
Whether you're traveling for business or pleasure, our attentive staff is here to ensure that your everyday need is met. We also offer complimentary pick-up and drop-off from the Lagos airport.
Take advantage of our state-of-the-art fitness center, outdoor pool, and enjoy a delicious meal at our on-site restaurant.
With stunning views, world-class service, and a prime location, Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, Lagos is the perfect choice for your next vacation or business trip.
So, why wait? Book your stay today and experience ultimate in comfort and luxury at Airport Golden Tulip Hotel.
For bookings and reservations, please call 0815-8003-333 or 0815-7003-333. You can visit our website at airportgoldentuliphotel.com.
Airport Golden Tulip Hotel, where luxury meets comfort.
Are you aware that Iruka Online Limited installed and designed a 100,000 capacity church building? Oh yeah, we are the sole distributors of global leading brands all over the world, such as Wafday Line Array, speakers and digital amplifiers, Preseno's digital mixers and studio equipment, Coswell workstations and keyboards, Fender guitars, Mapex drums, Ashdown bass combos, just to mention but a few. We offer...
They're not. They're number 3 and number
Good afternoon in Africa, good morning in the United States, and welcome to the third of our Africa-US forums for 2024. Today, Africa and the diaspora. These monthly forums feature speakers from around the African continent and here in Washington, D.C. This forum is on the record and is being recorded and is being videoed by Voice of America. Video of this Zoom recording will be available on demand later on the USC Africa US website. The link is already in chat. You can also find videos of all of our previous forums and a schedule of all of the forums for this calendar year. Our next forum will be Monday, April 22nd, the same time, and the topic will be freedom of expression around Africa with experts from around the continent and a speaker or two here in Washington, D.C. These forums are presented by, in alphabetical order, the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. We'll be hearing shortly from Bob Wekesa, the director. the Annenberg Center for Communication Leadership and Policy at the University of Southern California. And it's represented here by Judy King and me. The Center for African Studies at Howard University, and the director, Krista Johnson, will be speaking shortly. The Institute for African Studies at George Washington University. I see a few people logged in on Zoom from GW. And the Public Diplomacy Council of America. And again, I see some people from PDCA logged in. Today, as always, we have speakers from Africa, from the US, one who flew from Africa to the US on Saturday over the weekend to be with us. We welcome Vice Chancellor Miles Davis from Rufai University in Nigeria. He'll be speaking shortly. All of you here in Washington have speaker bios, and we will be putting into chat links to each of the speakers as they speak. But we begin, as always, with the person who has done so much to organize and build this program and this series, our inaugural Africa Fellow, Bob Wekesa, the director of the African Center for the Study of the United States, joining us from South Africa. So good afternoon, Bob.
Good morning, Adam. And pleasure, having me here. And thanks very much, participants in person and virtual. My introductory remarks will be short so that we provide as much time and space for our panelists to help unpack this ever-evolving topic of African diaspora. And mine is just to say that this initiative, the Africa-US Universities Network initiative, started in December 2022 as a sideline event of the US Africa Leaders Summit. And since then, we've sustained the monthly events, tackling various topics, think of, in fact, just last month, we handled the topic of Africa's engagement with global powers. And as my colleague Adam has mentioned, next month we'll be moving on to matters of press freedom. And we've handled topics to do with climate change, with digital economy and digital governance, all these very cutting edge issues. Today we handle the issue of diaspora, which, as I mentioned, is an ever-evolving issue and topic from all directions. I'll just give you a snippet, which my colleague will be speaking to. Now we are seeing a flood almost of African Americans migrating to the continent. And at the same time, we are seeing many Africans heading the other way towards the US, across the US. This is a concept I and Professor Krista Johnson have referred to as the old and new diaspora. And in between the migrations and immigrations from the continent to the US and from the US to the continent, and in fact, to the so-called global Africa, which will include Africa's migration or Africans migrating and living in Europe, in the Caribbean, in Asia, and so forth. This is a very fascinating topic, and we thought that putting together this event will help us unpack it. But more importantly, this initiative itself has now been in existence for over 14 months. In recent discussions with colleagues whom Adam mentioned, we are thinking of formalizing and institutionalizing the initiative because it has operated on a more or less loose basis. And I think we want to move towards institutionalization of the Africa-US Universities Network so that it permits us some resources, some order, some structure in terms of particularly knowledge production that is relevant to policymakers as well as to academia. But let me not bore you too much with what we plan to do or what we have done. I think it's my singular honor to invite our first speaker, Vice Chancellor Davis Miles, who is a distinguished professor with a track record, both academic and leadership, of over 30 years. He's a professor of management, entrepreneurship, and business, and he is the pioneer Vice Chancellor of Wigwe University in Nigeria, which I believe we shall be hearing about today. Before that, he served as president of Linfield University and has been involved in various good causes, such as being a leadership fellow in the Society of Leadership Fellows in the UK, as well as being executive mentor of the Global Food Fund. And I could go on and on. He has an extensive CV, as you can imagine. But I think it will only be wise and better to hand over the mic to him. Welcome, Professor Miles.
Thank you. And I am humbled, and I feel as if I first must apologize for those in attendance who saw the name Miles Davis and expect me to show up for trumpet. Sorry, I do not mean to disappoint you. But I want to share with you our perspective. The transatlantic slave trade was a horrible thing. It was horrific to be sold into slavery. It was more horrific to be subjected to the horrific conditions of ships crossing the Atlantic. It was horrific as people tried to break people's will and often brand their bodies to serve the capitalist needs of the diaspora that people were transported to. But people hear that and they think about history. So I'm not going to talk about history because there's something that's more important. Because the most powerful weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most destructive thing that was done to us was to separate us from our roots. Because any farmer will tell you, anybody who has spent time in nature will tell you that a tree without firmly planted roots is easily blown over in the wind. So I'm going to spend time taking you through, in the short time that I have, a thought exercise for you. You see, there are 170 million, give or take a few thousand, Blacks that are part of the diaspora. Of that number, 40 million live in the US. And I'm going to contrast that with another number. And I want you to hear me clearly because my contrast is for illustrative purposes only. It is not to advocate against or for anyone. I'm going to try to get to a point in the short period of time that I have. There are 14.6 million people who identify as Jews in the world. Of that 14.6 million, 6.2 million live in Israel. 5.7 live in the US. Now, I want you to remember those numbers. 14.6 million versus 170 million. And that there are 40 million people of Black descent in the US. And there are 5.7 million people who identify as Jews in the US. Just remember those numbers. Now, I have to ask your patience with me because I'm a bit of a data geek. But I think most of life comes down to math and science. So stay with me for a second. It is projected by the year 2030 that Black Americans will have $1.7 trillion in purchasing power in the US. I'm not even talking about the number that are in Latin America and Brazil. I'm talking about in the US alone. Why is it that Israel was able to emerge as an economic and even a military force in this region. It's because people from their diaspora were committed to its survival. Stay with me. I'm not arguing politics here. I'm talking economics. People were committed to its survival. Now, remember, I also said that there were $1.7 trillion in purchasing power among Black Americans. The entire economy, the GDP of the African continent is $3 trillion. That's the entire continent. The two largest economies are in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm going to start with the two that are not in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm looking at my friend, Mr. Yunus over here. The other is Egypt and Algeria. Those are the two that are not. They're number 3 and number 4. Number 1 is South Africa. And number 2 is my beloved adopted homeland of Nigeria. So I'm looking at these numbers and I'm saying, what if people from the diaspora took a percentage and invested? Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about trying to sell Africa something. I'm talking about invested in the survival of the country. You may say, well, Africa's a big continent. I don't know where I come from. I don't know where to start. Well, do what I did. I did a DNA test. I'm primarily from Nigeria. Part of why I'm there. You can find this information out. You don't have, there's 53 countries in Africa, so you don't have to decide to invest in all of them, but you can decide where to invest. And if people took and invested, I'm looking at my dear friend, Dr. Brenda over there, who decided that when she wanted to build a home out of this country, she decided to build a home in Cabo Verde. You don't have to run off to Italy, because they often don't want you anyway. You're coming from a place that underestimates you, undervalue, and marginalize you. Why are you investing in your money? Why is it that with this purchasing power, Blacks still tend to be represented in the financial scale in this country? The reason that we have not accumulated wealth within this country is because it doesn't want it. If you wonder what I'm talking about, just look at the history. I'm not making this stuff up. My beloved Navy Federal Credit Union, for those who wonder, I served in the U.S. military. They just released a data report that the same financial picture, Blacks get approved at loan at 50%, while whites get approved at 75%. Let me be clear. Do not hear me saying that I dislike anyone. I'm just giving you facts and figures. And since I went to one of those great schools where they taught Latin, res ispis liquidor, the facts speak for themselves. I'm saying that imagine what could happen if you took all that you have, all that you know, the separation that has occurred, and reunited that, decided to invest back in your country that you came from. What is the possibility? Don't tell me about the corruption that goes on in Nigeria, because I'm going to ask you, are you not paying attention to what's happening here? Don't talk to me about the problems that are happening there, because problems exist here. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I want you to be clear that we possess the tools to make a difference. If you want to help Egypt, help Egypt. If you want to help South Africa, help South Africa. If you want to help Cabo Verde, help Cabo Verde. But don't do it from a patronizing perspective. Do it from an investment perspective. Nigeria, where Rufai University is located, is a young country. It's a young country, both actually and proverbially. I didn't realize that most people didn't know that Nigeria did not come into existence as a country until 1960. I didn't realize that most people didn't know that. And then, of course, it lost 3 years to a civil war with the Biafra War, horrible war. And you say that people say, oh my God, look how horrible Africa is. Wait a minute. Did we fight a civil war in this country? Some think we're still fighting a civil war. Talk to some of my friends in Virginia. They talk about the war in northern aggression. I'm saying there are stages of development. Mr. Davis, there are stages of development. And it is only when you decide that you're going to make a difference and invest, because it is the middle class. It is the middle class that actually makes a difference in any society. The wealthy are going to be wealthy no matter where they are. I can't tell you what I've seen in wealth being in Nigeria. Can't even, it's no comparison. No comparison. And the poor are going to be the poor everywhere. The cities that I see with tin roofs or on stilts and villages and everything that exist look a lot or a little bit different from some of the tent cities that I saw when I lived in Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. I'm saying it's the middle class. It's those who start and launch businesses that demand the rule of law, that demand the infrastructure to make things happen. That's why your investment is needed. That's why we launched Wigway University. We didn't launch Wigway University in Nigeria to become the institution that helps unleash the prosperity in Africa, to produce people to get jobs. Because people have jobs. They're not making enough money to achieve a sustainable life there, but that happens here too. We're looking at people to become leaders, because where you see poor leadership anywhere in the world, you see miseducation, where people don't care about their people. They care more about themselves. And you don't have to look to Africa to see people running for leadership positions that are more concerned about themselves than they are for their country. Let somebody say amen to that. I'm saying, and wrapping up, I'm hoping that what we come to understand is Africa needs you. And you need Africa. 64% of the population in Nigeria is under 25 years old. 52% is under 19. It's a young country. Average life expectancy is 52 years old. Continues to go up. That's up from when it was 44 years old. Africa needs you. 1 in 4 people will be from the African continent. Africa needs you. There are opportunities for investment. There are opportunities for education. Why do those who identify as Jews send their children to live on kibbutz in Israel to establish a sense of identity that they can't get from being in the US? Would you consider sending your child to Wigway University in Nigeria? There's some wonderful institutions in South Africa that rank high in the world. Would you consider sending your child there? HBCUs, my dear friends here from Howard University, who are begging the government to give them money. Africa is the original HBCU. I'm saying that we have to free our minds. We have to decolonize our minds so that we can bridge that gap and reach out and build so that you can be seen, you can see something that you're proud of looking back at. I was having a wonderful conversation with my new friend, Miss Judy, this morning. We were talking about her soul journey from South Korea. I've lived long enough to know when South Korea was seen as a throwaway country. And then it changed, became an economic powerhouse. Africa needs you. And so, given that my time is up, I want to be sensitive to that. I want to say this to you because I think it's important for me to say this to you. I don't mean to offend anyone. I have to speak my truth. I don't mean ill will towards anyone. I don't say what I say out of any sort of hatred or dislike of anyone. I just love my people. Now, we can argue that everyone's my people, and I support that. But I also care about the least of these. The most in need right now are people who look like me. I want to make a difference in that world. And I understand that love is transformative. Love endures. Love, in the words of a songwriter, make you get up early or make you stay up all night long. Love is what we need. But you cannot truly love anyone else till you first learn to love yourself. Thank you for allowing me time to speak this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for framing what we should be discussing today and much more. I want to recognize Jennifer Cook, who is the head of the Institute for African Studies at George Washington University, one of our partners. She has joined us by video. Welcome, Jennifer. And our next speaker, also one of our partners, is Krista Johnson. Professor Johnson is the director of the Center for African Studies at Howard University. So, Krista Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adam, and colleagues who were there in Washington, D.C. I'm usually there, but this time I had to travel, so I'm joining you remotely. I look forward to this conversation, and Vice Chancellor Davis, I think, got us off to a good start, but he actually got me thinking about different things that I haven't put on in my presentation. So I think I will also just quickly go through my presentation, because as these events oftentimes are, the fruitful engagement really comes with engaging with the audience, and so I hope to kind of quickly be able to get to that. So my focus, I think, is a little bit different from Professor Davis's, in that I'm a political scientist by training, so I think I'm going to focus largely on not necessarily just the political kind of solidarities or engagements between Africa and the diaspora, but I think focus more on that. But I have a lot to say on, I think, some of these economic engagements as well. So let me just start by saying, as I was kind of preparing remarks, I thought that, well, what first came to my mind was really, I think, the fruitful conversations that we had around African agency last month, and then even in different forum, which really, I think, outlined, I think, some important areas for the continents to really show leadership and agency. One of them also just came up last week on Howard's campus when we invited South African Minister Naledi Pandor to come and speak on campus. And there she emphasized, which has been emphasized in one of our in our past sessions as well, the importance of strengthening multilateral institutions and really democratic governance at the international level. And Pandor talked about the African continent, or certainly South Africa's support of the United Nations as a system, not wanting to necessarily change that, but really reform it so that it actually addresses, the majority of the world's population and not just a minority. In our conversations in previous months, we talked about the pivotal role that will be played by the Africa Free Continental Trade area or agreement, and just the importance of really, supporting this idea of building a common and integrated market. And with that, really the importance of technology transfer, especially, in terms of thinking about the partnership roles between Western countries or developed countries and African countries. And I think some of these very much speak to as I said, Professor Davis gave us the kind of the larger bird's eye view, but a lot of this hinges on, of course, well, what are going to be those kind of economic engagements? So thinking through that is important. The other point that I would just say in terms of African agency is, you see this with regards to, in the conversations have touched on, the importance for African agency in the area of just energy transition, and then climate change, even just kind of, perhaps interconnected with that. So Minister Pandor last week was talking about the JETP partnership that South Africa has, but we know, I mean, to achieve the aspirations that Professor Davis was talking about in terms of, just tremendous, just the achieving the potential of economic development that the African continent has, that's going to require leadership and African agency in the area of energy and climate change, et cetera. So I just kind of put those on the table in terms of, like, what are the kind of the broader goals, and then thinking about how do we build African and diasporan solidarities that support African agency. So, the dynamics of diaspora engagement with their communities on the continent, with countries, with regions of origin, are certainly varied and complex, right? There are multi-layered and overlapping flows of linkages for diasporas. And these include 6 particularly critical flows. We have demographic, cultural, economic, political, ideological, and iconographic. And needless to say, mapping these flows onto the geographical and historical dimensions of the African diasporas, even in the United States, and certainly those around the world, becomes an exceedingly challenging task. One of the things that has oftentimes been, or one of the kind of these solidarities or engagements that has oftentimes been cited for a while now, has been the issue of remittances. As we know, just to give you again some of the statistics, in 2018, the officially recorded remittances were worth $46 billion in sub-Saharan Africa, which was far more. So these are remittances to the continent, was $46 billion. And this far exceeded foreign direct investments of that year, which was only $32 billion. So, kind of speaking to Professor Davis's point in terms of, like, the kind of spending potential or buying potential of the diaspora, we already know is quite significant. And in fact, a lot of money does get remitted there, but that's, of course, tends to be on a family and individual basis. There's also, just in terms of kind of thinking, taking a few steps back to think about the kinds of engagements that already exist or have existed for a number of years or even decades. It's important to, I think, for us in this conversation, to revisit the African Union and its creation of the African diaspora as a 6th region. This kind of region 6, as kind of a formal state, if you will, within the African Union, really was solidified in 2018, when you had the State of the African Diaspora. So looking specifically, in particular, at the diaspora in the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean in particular. But there's a lot of, as many can attest to, while this has been kind of something on paper, not just on paper, in fact, there have been, individuals and people who have been appointed or elected to, serve in different roles and positions within this state of the African diaspora. But I think what we're seeing now, or at least I feel what we're seeing now, is that that's kind of, we have multiple tracks in which the kind of Africa diaspora engagement are playing themselves out. And oftentimes these tracks do not necessarily overlap, or there's not certainly, kind of collaboration or coordination among these. So thinking, I think, through what do we see as the role of the 6th region within the AU, and is that an entity or a mechanism through which the diaspora can more effectively engage with the continent, and then vice versa, I think is something for discussion here. Let me also just backtrack and give a little bit more context from what Professor Davis gave. In terms of the changing demographics here in the United States, particularly within the Black American community. So most people probably, and I know we have an international audience certainly online, so I want to make sure everyone there is aware that the percentage of African immigrants as constituted in the Black American community has increased dramatically, really, over the past decades. And now they constitute about 11% of the Black people living in the United States. And that's up from just 3% in 1980. And there are projected numbers that trend is going to only increase. And by 2026, you'll probably have close to 25% of the Black population in the United States that are new African immigrants. And that doesn't even really take into consideration that generation of new diaspora, if you will, who were born in the United States, but whose parents immigrated from African countries. So the changing demographics in the United States, I think, is important context, kind of for the conversation that we're having here. But equally important is an understanding of domestic politics, right? So historically, the African diaspora in the United States didn't really engage in domestic politics. They weren't kind of a political force, unlike the Jewish diaspora, for example, that Professor Davis talked about, right? So, but I think what's really fascinating over the past, again, maybe decade or so, is you're seeing this growing political maturity of the African diaspora here in the United States. So whereas historically, African immigrant communities tended not to align themselves very easily with, say, the homegrown African-American population, in part because, of course, that homegrown African-American population has been severely oppressed, has been severely marginalized, and has been severely kind of, demonized, right, in the eyes of many of the population. So that wasn't a kind of an alliance that new African immigrants were interested in solidifying. But we've seen a real kind of shift in that with the Black Lives Matter movement and the George Floyd murder. We've seen a real shift in that, and we've seen a real kind of intra-racial alliance in important respects. Not that it's all, love and getting along kumbaya. There's a lot of differences and a lot of diversities that need to be managed within that alliance or within that community or population. But there certainly have been opportunities to forge those kinds of alliances. So as I said before, what's really striking to me is to understand and to really kind of reflect on this political maturity of the African diaspora. And you see this probably most visibly, or most people are aware of the President Biden's announcement of this new Presidential Advisory Commission on African Diaspora and Engagement, which was formed after the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. And that's probably one of the more visible ways in which we're seeing really this kind of mobilizing of the African diaspora community as really a tool of soft power for the U.S. administration. But then that also, of course, holds opportunities for the diaspora to utilize those fora for its own ends. But we're also seeing this at other levels of government as well. In Maryland, where I live, the Governor Wes Moore just announced a new Maryland African Affairs Commission, right, that he himself has put together of African diaspora and leading individuals within the states. And that commission is intended to play an advisory role, but also a kind of a galvanizing and a forum really for African diaspora and African American communities to kind of congeal and to hopefully maybe develop some common interests that can be worked towards. But at the same time, we see the congressional bill, for example, in Congress, which is trying to ostracize South Africa and U.S.-South Africa relations, or certainly critique South Africa and U.S.-South Africa relations. And that bill was actually introduced by a Black Republican, John James. So you see opportunities for the African diasporan community collectively to support African initiatives and African agency, but then there are also certainly examples of the ways in which that gets undermined. I would say just as well, and I'm going to get to a couple of just kind of big points, but I would say as well, it's important to note that outside of Ghana, people are probably aware, the Ghanaian government has a diaspora affairs office in the office of the president. And, you know, I think it's important to maybe debate and discuss, is that a model that can be and that should be perhaps, you know, utilized or multiplied by other African countries? One of the ways in which the Ghanaian government has been able to utilize that office very effectively has been to for it to capitalize on this, the campaign of the Year of the Return, right? That was both, to Professor Davis's point, that was both an investment opportunity for Ghana, right, to kind of draw investment from the diaspora, but it was also a kind of a cultural and awareness opportunity to, you know, make people aware of Ghanaian culture and West African culture and society, and, you know, kind of rekindle those ties and those connections with the diaspora. So I think what is needed, and this is a challenge, right? What is needed is a united diaspora. What we see, I could go on and on about all of the numerous, you know, Liberian American associations that are being forged, you know, not only in the DMV area, but throughout the country. Sierra Leonean, Nigerian, not even just Nigerian American, but we're of course down to Igbo American and, you know, Yoruba American. So we see all kinds of, you know, entities emerging that are representing various interests, you know, aligned with interests on the continent. So I think the challenge for us now is to really kind of think about how we forge a united diaspora, or at least, and it's not going to be, of course, we have disparate interests. So that's not going to, you know, be, there's not going to be one unified voice, but I think thinking strategically about how we might come together on at least several issues, and then be able to present them or move forward in a unified voice. We did that, of course, with the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. We've done that with other initiatives on the continent. So thinking strategically about the ways in which we can do that. I would also just highlight, and I know I'm running out of time too, I would highlight as well that this is where I think, you know, it would be foolhardy to kind of make this, to make a separation between the old diaspora, if you will, and the new diaspora, because the old diaspora, I think, has a lot to teach this new diaspora in terms of understanding and maneuvering within the kind of interest group politics that exists within the United States, because they've been more adept at doing that just for a longer period of time. Let me also just say, I think we African states, and the African states in particular, have not capitalized on subnational diplomacy to the extent that they could. And that, in fact, is where you see really more political prominence of the African diaspora. So the sister cities initiatives that Access and, you know, others are doing, I think are important, because as I showed, even at the state level, that's where you have these African Affairs commissions. In the DC area, we have the DC Office on African Affairs. So those kinds of entrees into the American system, into the American political system, are important for African governments and regions and entities to be aware of, but also thinking about how it is that they can capitalize on building those relationships at that level, at the subnational level. I would also just highlight, and I can't say too much about this, but the role of HBCUs, right? I mean, this came up again, you know, higher education, I think, has a really significant role to play here, but particularly HBCUs. We're seeing a tremendous change and transformation on Howard's campus alone. I can, you know, just speak to Howard's, you know, experience. But which it really bodes well for, I think, developing these strong connections and really partnerships between the diaspora and African partners. I won't go into how all of the Howard initiatives that we do that I think that would support that. But, you know, the AU recently announced that they want to train over 100,000 postgraduate researchers, African researchers in the next, I think, decade or so, or a couple of decades, part of its kind of 2063, you know, agenda. HBCUs, higher education more broadly, but HBCUs, I think, will be critical in terms of, you know, building those relationships and supporting that agenda, and really making sure that that African governments and bodies are able to meet that. I'm going to stop there so that we can have more time for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista Johnson, the director of the Center for African Studies at Howard University, I'm looking at the screen. We are standing by for at least one more speaker from Africa. I don't see him yet. So let's continue. Professor Johnson just mentioned the subnational initiative through the diaspora, mentioning Maryland, District of Columbia. One person who is a mayor, now a mayor, former member of Congress, Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles, is very much committed to ties with Africa. So let's go now to Los Angeles, where it is still very early in the morning. And our next speaker is Ernest Wilson, former dean of the USC Annenberg School. He is now he's a professor, and he is the founder and director of the Center for Third Space Thinking, and much more. So, Ernie, thank you for getting up very early in the morning there in California. The floor is yours. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Adam, for inviting me. This is, I've really enjoyed the presentation so far, and I'm going to build on what Dr. Johnson said in talking about agency. And I will point on, yes, the sun is just beginning to rise here in California, but I see it's already light there in my old hometown of Washington, D.C. And so what I would like to do is to talk a little bit about the history of agency that Professor Johnson talked about. I love the way she set out a future agenda, which I think is very important. And the future agenda is going to be based on what people in the diaspora have done prior to today. And I want to underscore her recognition of the African diaspora's engagement in political affairs over the past couple of decades, which has been hugely important. And as interesting and important is the mobilization on the continent of others who are also interested in the diaspora. And that, of course, is the subject of the conversation today. I will say that I think I see Dr. Joe Opaku who is there with us today, who is a real leader in the interaction between the African diaspora and the continent, especially Nigeria. So good morning, Joe. It's good to see you again. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Dr. Johnson talked about the various channels that are available to us to try to exercise the kind of political power that other diasporas enjoy, whether it's the Greeks, it's the Italians, it's the Jews, it's other groups, ethnic groups, who have mobilized politically to achieve their goals. And what I would like to, I'm going to walk through about 6 or 7, very briefly, 6 or 7 channels that the diaspora has employed to enhance trade with Africa, to cut back on the relationship between the white South African regime and the Black people of South Africa. So there are a number of examples. So this is going to be a quick history of what has been done in the United States, in the African diaspora toward the continent. Now, I should confess and brag here a little bit, because as Dr. Johnson said, she didn't get enough time to talk about Howard University, but I am going to talk about Howard because I was born on Howard University's campus and grew up there, right where the main library is, because my father was involved with African students at Howard University. He was the first dean of international affairs at Howard University. So I'm going to speak from personal experience, having grown up and seeing the diaspora emerge, especially in Washington, D.C., among the students who were at Howard University, and also when the first ambassadors came to the United States from Africa, and who established themselves in the Washington area. So the first category of agency and mobilization that I want to point to is political grassroots programs. Some of you probably remember Trans Africa, which was created in 1976 by Randall Robinson, who had been working with one of the Black congressmen who was very active in Africa, really the godfather of African American relations in politics, and that was Congressman Diggs from Detroit, who helped to found this organization called Trans Africa, which mobilized African Americans across the country, starting in 1976. He worked in, that organization worked in Boston, in Washington, in Chicago. There were also political mobilizations in the Bay Area around that time, in a number of organizations, especially working with South Africa. And so in the Bay Area, there were struggles around Zimbabwe, and African Americans worked with African organizations like ZANU in Zimbabwe, the ANC, Frelimo, who would work, and we worked with Mozambique and Angola. I remember working in South Africa personally with some of those groups, including the Black Panther organization. The Communist Party was very interested in Southern African struggles because of the labor movements in the Bay Area, and so forth. And so these kinds of models, political activities, demonstrate that there is a history of collaboration, close collaboration between Africans in the New World and Africans in Africa. One of the leaders in that movement is a woman named Gay McDougall, who was very active in Trans Africa and became one of the advisors to Nelson Mandela. In fact, the photograph of Nelson Mandela voting in South Africa has Gay McDougall standing right next to the president as he was casting his vote. Moving on to cultural religious engagement, the African American church was very interested in Africa in the 1800s and into the 1900s, and created a pipeline back and forth between those two areas. I was lucky enough to live in the Congo for a while as a missionary, mostly because that was the only way I could get into the Congo to do voluntary work in that part of the world. Many of my friends were surprised that I was ever a missionary. I think it seems hard for them to believe, but we have to do what we have to do where we have to do it. But the main denominations sent missionaries again and again and again to Southern Africa, to West Africa, and that provides us a model, in a sense, of what we could do in interacting with our brothers and sisters on the continent in these movements. Let me also mention a gentleman who created a private sector USAID, a man named C. Payne Lucas, who developed something called Africare. And he created this organization and rooted it in the African American community in Washington because he felt that the assistance that the US government was giving to Africa was too paternalistic and too, frankly, from his perspective, too white oriented. And he wanted to create an institution that was African and African American oriented. And so he formed a new organization to do that. Black professional organizations in the Association of Black Lawyers and healthcare officials, they were also engaged between the United States and Africa and continue to be. There was a man a number of people, I'll just mention the other congressmen who were involved and brought in to promote African American relations in the Congressional Black Caucus. Adam Clayton Powell, the first, was one of those people who provided political power in the Congress. And that's one thing I want to emphasize, which is that the work that we have done over the years, whether at Howard University or Harvard University or Berkeley, has been done to mobilize our communities to put pressure on the US Congress, pressure on the White House, pressure on formal governmental organizations like the USTR, United States Trade Representative's Office. And so I kind of want to convey that we have had great successes in moving forward the African agenda. And as we become more mobilized on this side of the water and on that side of the water, then we can continue that. I'll close by saying that one of the groups that did that were academics. I'll put on my professor hat here and remind us that there was something called the African Studies Association, which was dominated largely by white academics. And then in the early 70s, along with other Pan-African movements in the United States, there was created the African Heritage Studies Association, which was formed by Black academics at HBCUs and other schools, but especially HBCUs, who wanted to have their own platform, to demonstrate their own voice, to demonstrate their own priorities as Black people in the diaspora. So I want to just encourage us to continue that by working through these 6 or 7 channels that Dr. Johnson also talked about, because when we do that, we do better over here in mobilizing politics and also working in Africa. So thank you very much, Adam, and to your group, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Professor Wilson, for that tour de force. You really kind of, in only a few minutes, helped wrap up a vast history overarching a long period of time. and also for giving us the framework, as scholars, as intellectuals, through which we can contemplate, research, analyze these issues.
Thank you, sir.
I particularly like the idea of agency through phases of time, and I believe as scholars we can follow that and, in an agential manner, keep moving the script. And I think for now, we'll now move to our next speaker, who is Mr. Nee Simmons, who is a thought leader, in fact, and a public intellectual, who will then give us his perspective on the topic. Without further ado, over to you, Nee. And I just want to also mention quickly that we've been hit by load shedding, blackout here. And so if for some reason I disappear, it's because we don't have power. I guess you saw my screen go blank. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Bob. Oh, wow, intellectual, okay. I want to thank USC for inviting me again to speak about this important subject. Diaspora engagement is not only important, it's a pillar of strength for any country that's developing or developed, right? And as a continent, as African continent changes, evolves, it's very, very important countries not only embrace their diasporas, they are engaging them on an ongoing basis. And one is not just engaging their diaspora just for financial or when they're set here return. It's an ongoing engagement, right? And what does that mean? That means that your embassies and consulates have to be engaged on an ongoing basis, and I'll talk about that. If you're an African country, you have an overseas consulate or embassy, and your citizens or your diaspora is only going there to get a visa or update their passport. That is it's an unused it's an unused treasure, right? And your embassies and consulates are a extension of your brand identity. Let's be very, very honest, right? So I'll go into further detail about that. But the demographics are quite alarming. There's also opportunity. The continent right now is about 1.5 billion people. There are about 5 countries that will double in size. Yeah. Nigeria's going to double. DRC's going to double. Egypt's going to double. Kenya's going to double. List goes on. And with this doubling, what does that mean for food security, climate change, baseload power? Bob just mentioned that he might have to get off the phone because of ESCOM has had this challenge for years. So, not only do we have to feed ourselves, we have to make sure that we have enough electrification, that we have enough jobs for all these youth. We can't have young women and men, and I said women. Everybody says men first. I'm gonna say women. I'm about gender equality. So we can't have women and men, young women and men, walking around with nothing to do. That's a cause of, that's a recipe of disaster, right? Even if we have to have some sort of African version of a Peace Corps, so they're doing something or getting back, we can't have an idle mind at waste, right? So that's something that we have to find a way to mitigate and solve. In 20 years, some say that the continent will double or will increase to 2.5 billion people. That's alarming, right? So what do you do if you're head of state and you are dealing with this demographic population, and you have you're digitizing and you're trying to get to the point where you're supporting this new growth, and you don't know what to do about it? Well, your diaspora's there, right? Everybody talks about AFTA, the Africa Free Trade Agreement. It's having some. It's going through its growing pains, but it'll get there. I think it's a first good step. I think there needs to sort of be some, a mechanism for rules of not conformity. If you're not conforming, what is the penalty? So you can just have a trade agreement and then it's there. Nobody's really doing it. I mean, my country, my parents are from Ghana. I just understand that Ghana just allows some visa-free access. I thought the ACTA was allowed flow of people. If you're, just like the EU, we're trying to mimic other countries or other regions. We should allow free movement. I don't know why this hasn't happened. But those demographics are desolated groundwork or something that it's real. It's not going away, but it's something that we need to solve. Can the diaspora be a partner in that? How do we utilize all of us with backgrounds? You said it well, Dr. Davis. There are all these people in the diaspora who are sitting here and African needs. I wouldn't go above and beyond and say, now that we need those talents, we need to identify who has experience and training, the skill set. Morocco had a devastating earthquake last year. Do they know when their global diaspora have backgrounds in civil engineering, disaster response, supply chain, so that they can help with the post-recovery of the Moroccan, this devastating Moroccan earthquake? I hear that it was in the mountains, it wasn't near Marrakech or some of the other urban areas. Libya had a devastating flooding with its with some man-made challenges, and it flooded some areas. Does the Libyan government know who is in there? Well, they don't have a government right now. They're trying to solve that as we speak. But these are things that we have to ask ourselves, right? I don't want to, there are a lot of. I'm a business person. I've done a lot of hot hands early stage entrepreneurs, and for every challenge in Africa, there's also an opportunity, right? There are a lot of challenges on the continent, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And I think what you're going to see in the next, you're seeing it now. There's this term unicorn. That's term is a company that's an early stage company that has a market cap of $1 billion. A couple of them, but going forward, you're going to see more of these unicorns. Entrepreneurs, innovators, scientists who have taken a risk opportunity in a startup that's trying to solve a local challenge that can expand to other countries in the region. I would actually say some of these unicorns are going to be cross-continental. Once you see an African company go to Latin America or South Asia or Southeast Asia, that's when you know that, hey, this can be a Pan-African company. Right? And I'm not talking about Donity, I'm talking about early stage startups who are disrupting traditional businesses and are making inroads, are going to create jobs. Those are the types of things that I like to support. I know the whole diaspora engagement. I think the top 3 countries